And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, March 27th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about LeBron James. So once again, had another buzzer beater to add to his career as the Lakers win 120-119 over the Pacers last night. But we will also talk about the exclusive interview that he had on the Pat McAfee show. Now, it did also simulcast on ESPN. So, depending on if you watched it on Pat McAfee's channel or ESPN's channel, you may or may not have experienced some audio issues. Now, we'll get into that as well. Then in the second part of the show, we will talk about the Sweet 16 games for tonight. There's 4 games. We'll talk about them. I'll give you my picks, update you guys on the bracket, how it's looking, my bracket. So that'll be the second part of the show. Third part of the show, we'll get into some baseball. I will give you my predictions for the divisions in the National League and also give you my 3 wildcard teams as well. And then in the fourth part of the show, we will take a look at the matchups for today in Major League Baseball, the pitching matchups, who I think will win each game, give you a rough prediction. And then in the final part of the show, I will break down the Ravens season, 2024 season overview, how their season went and what they've done in the offseason and what maybe they could potentially do with their first round selection. So that's the rundown for the show today. Let's get into the first topic, though, which is talking about LeBron James. So, yes, the Lakers have been kind of scuffling a little bit since LeBron has come back. But you already saw the image. But he did hit a buzzer beater last night. Luka Doncic took the last shot. It was off, but LeBron was right there for the rebound and the quick putback. And the Lakers were able to get the win 120-119 against the Pacers, who are a solid team. And this extended his 18-year streak of scoring double-digit points in every game since January 5th of 2007. His streak remains the longest in NBA history, with Michael Jordan second at 866 games. Because, yes, LeBron did not have a great shooting night last night. He entered the fourth quarter with only 3 points, and he was 0 for 6 from the field. And I believe he ended up finishing with 13 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, so he still got a double-double. The Lakers, he scored on 4 straight possessions to reach 11 points, securing his streak. Lakers led by 13, but the Pacers came back and went on a 13-0 run. And they took the lead before LeBron had the game-winning tip-in. Now, like I said, the Lakers have been struggling. That snapped a 3-game winning streak, so it was huge to pick up a win, especially against a playoff team like the Pacers. Now, obviously, they're not going to go up against them unless they play against them in the finals, but still, it's a good team that they went up against on the road, and they were able to squeak by. But yeah, they were losing against the Bulls. I mean, they got blown out against the Bulls. They lose to the Magic, who've been disappointing this year. But yeah, they were able to pick up the win. And there's 10 games left in the regular season for the Lakers. So right now they're 44-28. They're currently the 4 seed, and they're tied with the Grizzlies. So anything can happen within these next 10 games. But they still have a chance to catch up to the Nuggets, and, they still have a chance to catch up to the Rockets and try to, get back the 2 seed, because they did have that before LeBron went down. And I've gone over their schedule several times, but they do play the Bulls again, so maybe they could pick up a win there. And then they do go up against, some playoff teams down the stretch here. So, we'll see what they're made of during this stretch. Luka had a big game last night, 34 points. He continues to play well. Actually, for both teams, all 5 starters for both teams scored in the double digits. The leading scorer, of course, was Luka Doncic. Then you had Austin Reeves, went 1 for 8 from 3, but he had 24 points. Jackson Hayes had 13 points. He went 6 of 6 from the field. Rui Hachimura had 14 points. They got 11 points from Finney Smith off the bench. And then looking at the Pacers, actually the Lakers shot 17 to 38 from 3, which is not good. And then for the Pacers, they had three players with 16 points. Halliburton, Nembhard, Miles Turner, and then Nesmith had 13. Pascal Siakam had 15. And the Pacers, they dropped to 42 and 30. But I do want to get into the Pat McAfee interview. So I did bring up the audio issues. That was depending on what YouTube channel you were listening or watching it on, because on ESPN's YouTube channel, the audio was constantly cutting out. Now that's because LeBron James was just letting it rip, and he was using some words that I can't use on the show. So you kind of understand that. So, but if you go to the Pat McAfee channel and you watch it on YouTube, it's unfiltered. So that's why there was audio issues, because there was so many comments saying, why does the audio keep cutting out? Well, that's because he was swearing. So, but as for the interview, they talked about a lot. Talked about, LeBron first coming into the league, and they did bring up the cookie incident. And we talked about this in our production meeting. Now, I wasn't aware of this incident until it was brought up to me and the other hosts in the production meeting. I mean, they might have knew about it, but I didn't know about this with Pat Riley, and how, on the flights, during LeBron's time with the Heat, you'd have the people make chocolate chip cookies for LeBron, and then eventually that stopped. And supposedly that kind of led to the falling out between Pat Riley and LeBron, or one of the reasons why that led to the falling out between those two guys. And then LeBron ended up leaving and going back to Cleveland. So that was talked about. He talked about, Dwayne Wade leaving as well. Also, they did bring up Michael Jordan as well. And LeBron talked about how their relationship is fine. There's no issues. He said that, they don't really talk because right now LeBron's still playing. And he hopes that once he retires that, they can have an even better relationship. And he talked about, his relationship with Kobe, and, how it was always, competitive when they were playing, and how Kobe was very welcoming when LeBron came to LA and said, he would help him out, if he needed anything during his time there. But yeah, so there was that. But the main thing I did want to talk about is the ongoing beef between him and Stephen A. Smith. Now, this is just, my opinion. Now, LeBron said on the subject that, he doesn't care if you're just talking about, if you're an analyst, if your job is to, critique what players do on the court, their performances, he doesn't care about that. What he cares about is if it gets personal, when you start talking about family. Now, I've had this conversation with my friends. It is their job. So I can't tell you specifically what Stephen A. Smith said about, now, we're talking about now his son, Bronny James. I can't tell you what specifically Stephen A. Smith said that ticked LeBron off, that led to the altercation when Stephen A. was at Crypto.com Arena and LeBron approached him, and you saw the video that came out. I don't know what exactly Stephen A. Smith said on television that led to LeBron going over and talking to him. But he said something that LeBron didn't like. And, I remember Stephen A. commented on it and said that, that was a father that was talking to him. So Stephen A., whatever he said, LeBron didn't like. But if Stephen A was strictly just talking about Bronny's level of play, and that's what ticked LeBron off, well, that's his job. And, you kind of put yourself in a tough spot because, this just so happens that, you got a player that's LeBron's son that is now playing in the league, and there are times where you have to talk about him. Now, Bronny actually had a performance the other night in the G League where he put up 39 points. So maybe he could turn himself into a good NBA player if he's showing improvement. And they also brought up the when Bronny suffered the cardiac arrest, and LeBron talked about how it was I think he said it was a birth defect, and that was kind of the cause of why that happened. So Bronny's been through a lot. He could have lost his life, and we should be happy that he's out there and he's playing basketball now. Obviously, people have strong opinions on him being in the NBA, and LeBron is a direct cause of that. But yeah, you got to remember that happened too, and we got to sit back and just say, hey, look, at least he's out there and he's healthy, because it could have been really bad. But yeah, so LeBron was talking about the Stephen A. Smith stuff and just how, don't get personal. And, he just said, and he kind of mocked Stephen A., saying, Stephen A.'s probably watching, can't wait to, talk about this and how, LeBron's talking about him, and, he was just making fun of him and all that. And Stephen A. Smith has responded to it and says LeBron is full of it. But Stephen A. also did say that, if LeBron put his hands on him during that little that talk, that he would have swung at him. And then this led to LeBron posting on social media the video of Stephen A. Smith sparring, practicing his boxing. So that was a little petty, but again, that's just coming from me. So this is going back and forth. And the fact that LeBron was saying all of this on Stephen A.'s network is like a mic drop moment. So this is nowhere near towards the end here. This is going to continue, and a lot of people are interested in it. So that was interesting. But I do want to give Pat McAfee props because, a lot of people are saying how LeBron, he doesn't agree to stuff like this, right? He doesn't agree to stuff like this. And the fact that he went on it just shows you how far along Pat McAfee has come as, as a broadcaster, as a host of a show, of a major network. Well, I shouldn't say that because ESPN, brought his show on. But still, just being a host of that kind of show and how it's built up, and when you get guys like that, that shows that they're comfortable to go on your show. So hopefully I get to that point one day. But I wanted to bring that up as well. But yeah, it's very interesting. LeBron was on for an hour. But yeah, it was unfiltered. I mean, he was swearing. But look, that's what Pat McAfee's show is. When it's not on ESPN. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about what LeBron said. The feud between him and Stephen A. It's very interesting. And like I said, it's gonna continue to go back and forth. So we're gonna take our first break of the show now. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Sweet 16 for tonight. I will give you my predictions, and I will update you guys on how the bracket is looking currently. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit, I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant, I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows with 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Sweet 16 games for tonight, and I'll give you my picks, how the bracket is looking. So this is when the games really start to get good. We have 4 games tonight, 4 games tomorrow, and then, of course, we have the Elite 8 over the weekend. So the matchups for tonight are as followed. So you have 2 games on CBS, and then you have 2 games on TBS. So 7:09 p.m. start time, Eastern time, for BYU, Alabama. Alabama's a 5.5-point favorite. This is going to be a very good game. There could be Alabama could be on upset alert. BYU, they played VCU and Wisconsin. They lost to Houston in the Big 12. In the Big 12 championship game, I believe. They barely got by Wisconsin. That game got very dicey towards the end, but BYU was able to come away with the win. And for Alabama, listen, they're trying to get back to the Final Four. They beat Robert Morris, who gave them a tough time, and then they beat St. Mary's. So yeah, this is gonna be a very good game. Could definitely go either way. I do have Alabama advancing, but I would not be surprised if there's an upset. I think it's going to be a very close game. I probably would take BYU with the points if I was going to make a little bit of a wager with this game. But we'll see. Mark Sears, so far in these playoffs or in this tournament, he had a double-double the first game against Robert Morris. Only had 12 points against St. Mary's in the second round. So they're going to need him to have a very good game, Alabama. But yeah, that gets us started off. Then, a little while later, you got the Maryland Terrapins against the Florida Gators. Florida barely got by the defending champion UConn Huskies. That was a very entertaining game, but they were able to get the win, and they beat Norfolk State in the first round. And then for Maryland, thought we were going to have the first, major upset, or the second major upset of the tournament, with a 12 beating a 4, and with Colorado State, and Maryland hit game-winning shot, and they won by 1 point, 72-71 over the Colorado State Rams. So they beat them, and they beat Grand Canyon in the first round. They lost to Michigan in the Big Ten conference tournament. So this is another game that could be very entertaining. And looking at for Florida's player, Walter Clayton Jr., he's done very well as of late. 23 points in back-to-back games. And then on the other side, you got Derek Queen, who's also been good as of late. Well, really he's been good all season. But since March 14th, 19 points, 31 points, 12 points, 15 rebounds against Grand Canyon, and then 17 against Colorado State. And they're 6.5-point underdogs. I do have Florida advancing. I have them getting to the Final Four. I have 3 number 1 seeds and 1 2 seed. I didn't have Auburn advancing. I had Creighton defeating them, but we'll see what happens this weekend. But I do have Florida winning this game. Then we got the Wildcats against the Blue Devils. Duke has looked very strong in this tournament so far, all over Mount St. Mary's and then all over Baylor, 89-66. Cooper Flagg in these two tournament games, he had 14 points and then 18 points the other day against Baylor. Tyrese Proctor, 19 points against Mount St. Mary's. He had 25 against Baylor. But they will be going up against an old friend in Caleb Love, who spent some time, who was with UNC, and he's coming off of a 29-point performance against Oregon. I mean, he was the driving force in that game. And they're 9.5-point underdogs in this game as well. Now, when it comes to both teams, it's going to be Duke's defense. It's going to have to come up big in this game as well. Right now, they're number 4 in defensive efficiency with their number 1 offense. And they held Baylor to 66 points and 36.8 shooting percentage in the game. Now, that's going to be a little different going up against the Wildcats, but I still like Duke to win this game. Now, again, you got Caleb Love, who has gone up against them before in big games. So you do worry about that from a Duke perspective. But, listen, I have Duke winning the whole thing. I need them to win this game. I think they should win, but it's going to be tough. And then we got the Razorbacks and Texas Tech. So I do have Arkansas advancing to the Elite Eight. Now, that was solely on the fact that they have John Calipari. But Texas Tech is a really good team. They finished second in the Big 12 this season, at least in the standings. And they did lose to the Wildcats in the conference tournament. So I could definitely see this being the round where Arkansas does end up losing. I mean, looking at the rankings for both teams, I mean, Texas Tech beats them in the offensive categories by when it comes to the rankings. But their free throw percentages are about the same. Their field goal percentages are about the same. Points against, though, Texas Tech beats them. And then, points per game, Texas Tech has Arkansas beat as well. But, look, I'm just hoping that, Calipari and that team finds a way to get a win and just advances one more time, just to help me out with the bracket. So I do have them winning, but it is going to be very tough. And I guess they're really that Cinderella team right now in the tournament because they're a 10 seed. Everybody else is, top 6. So, we'll see what happens, but that's what I have. I have Alabama winning, Florida, Duke, and hopefully Arkansas gets the win. So, looking at my bracket, now my main bracket is doing very well. I'm currently top 3 in my 3 bracket groups. 2 of them are small. One of them is with, I think, at least 20 people. Yeah, 20 people. And I'm in 3rd right now. Now, the person that's in 1st place had St. John's winning the tournament. So they're out. They're done. But everybody else right now, unless they end up losing, everybody around me has Duke. So it really is going to come down to, if Arkansas can win tonight, that is huge for me, for my bracket. But I'm very worried that is not going to happen. But we're looking good at the moment. All my Final Four teams are still intact. The only Elite Eight team that got eliminated was Creighton for me, But I am hoping that Auburn does lose for the bracket because, there's people that have Auburn winning the whole thing. But Auburn has looked really good. They looked good against Creighton. They looked good in their first round matchup, but that was pretty much a guarantee, or I shouldn't say a guarantee, but they were never really in jeopardy of losing that game to Alabama State. But now it gets harder. They play Michigan. Michigan's coming off of that win against Texas A&M. We'll see how it goes. But like I said, my Final Four teams are still intact. Michigan State, I got going to the Final Four. That matchup with Ole Miss does worry me. But I actually, not only that, I have Michigan State in my championship game. So we'll see. We shall see. But they should be very good games tonight. Looking forward to them. And we'll see. And then, like I said, we got 4 games tomorrow. We'll take a look at those. We'll recap the games from tonight. But yeah, so we got Ole Miss and Michigan State, and then we got Kentucky and Tennessee, so a SEC matchup. Then you got Michigan representing the Big Ten against Auburn in the SEC, and then you got Purdue and Houston. Big Ten versus Big 12. So those are the 8 games. Like I said, we'll take a look at the other 4 tomorrow. And then Saturday starts the Elite 8, and we'll see who makes it to the Elite 8. But let me know what you guys think, though, about your brackets or the games tonight. Who do you think wins? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about baseball because baseball starts today. We will start off the baseball stretch here of the show by talking about the National League. I'll give you my predictions for each division, who I have coming out of the wild card spots. So you don't want to miss that. So that is what we'll get into when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to get into some baseball, shall we? And I will give you my predictions for the National League, who I think is going to win each division, who's going to make the wild card, and maybe I'll give you a World Series prediction towards the end. So, taking a look, now these are the over-unders that I have for win totals. So, for the National League East, the Braves 93.5 wins, the Mets 90.5 wins, Phillies 9.5, Nationals at 7.5, Marlins at 63.5. Then in the Central, you got the Cubs at 86.5, Milwaukee Brewers 82.5, Reds 79.5, Pirates and the Cardinals both at 75.5, Then the National League West, you got the Dodgers at 105.5, Diamondbacks at 86.5, Padres 85.5, Giants 79.5, and the Rockies at 59.5. So let's get into the NL Central. So it's going to be interesting. I think that is going to be a close division race. I think the top 3 teams right now. Now, one of the teams I don't mention could surprise us because, the young players they have on their team and the stud pitcher that they have, and that's the Pirates with Paul Skeens for a full season. But I still don't think they're going to be very good. Now, again, they could surprise us. But I do think the division is going to come down to the Brewers, the Cubs, and the Reds. And I am going to pick the Cincinnati Reds to win the NL Central. I've been thinking about it. The Cubs, look, with Craig Counsell in year 2 as the manager, they traded for Kyle Tucker, who's a very good player. Maybe they could be that team. The Brewers are the team that always comes out of the Central. But the reason why I have the Reds winning the division, they do have very good young players that are on the come up. Ellie De La Cruz is one of those players, and many people are projecting a big year for him this upcoming season. It's because of Terry Francona. Similar to how I feel about, the Razorbacks advancing very far in the tournament with John Calipari. But now, obviously, 2 completely different sports. But Terry Francona, first of all, I was surprised that he came back. I thought once he left Cleveland and retired, that was it. He was gone. But then, out of nowhere, he gets hired by the Reds, and they get an upgrade there. And look, as a Yankee fan, Terry Francona, is in Yankee fans' nightmares because he was, the manager of the team that came back down 3-0. But not only that, and the Red Sox did win, but, he won another championship with the Red Sox as well. He brought Cleveland to a World Series. He's a very good manager. And he's a leader, and I think he's a guy that's really going to, build relationships with these players and already has, I'm sure. He's a player's coach. And I think he's going to bring the best out of this young team. And I really think they're going to take that next step. And they'll come out of the Central. If you were to do a rankings of the managers in the division, Terry Francona is at number 1. So that's kind of my reasoning. Now there are some guys that are hurt. I think Spencer Steer is hurt, but I don't know. I like the Reds with Francona as the manager, so I'm gonna take the Reds to win the National League Central. Now, could they be a playoff team? If they don't win the division, could they still make the playoffs? Yeah, they could, but it's going to be very tough. I think the pathway for them to make the playoffs is to win the division, because I just think you have, the National League is loaded. So I got the Reds coming out of the Central. Now, the other 2 divisions, well, one of them, we'll get it out of the way. Dodgers, I got winning the NL West. There's not really much to say about it. Defending World Series champs. Their lineup is very good. Their pitching is very good. They have a lot of depth there. And they're going to be a very exciting team to watch, though. Even though a lot of people are not too thrilled with them, what they've been doing over the last couple of years, with how they've been able to allocate their funds, they're going to be a team that, when they're on national television, you're going to watch. The rotation, getting Blake Snell and Roki Sasaki. Tyler Glass now comes back. Yoshinobu Yamamoto in year 2. Ohtani's eventually going to pitch. We're getting positive updates on Mookie Betts. So it was just I know yesterday I kind of was saying, was there an update on Mookie Betts? But it was just my friend saying how the whole situation is just, it's sad to see. But we are getting positive updates on that front. So hopefully Mookie, is good to go. And there's no more issues there with what he's dealing with. But they're going to be a very good team. They're going to be a very good team once again. They're going to be even better. They just have a lot of pitching depth. I think that's really the key because you see all these pitchers going down. They have a ton of depth, and they're going to be able to withstand it. So I got them winning the division though. NL East, I could definitely see the Phillies, the Mets, or the Braves winning it. I do have the Braves winning it. I think you're going to see a bounce back from guys like Matt Olson and Austin Riley. Hopefully Spencer Strider comes back and is, himself prior to his injury. Same thing with Ronald Acuna, although 2 different injuries and 2 different players. But Ronald Acuna is not going to be back right away. He'll be back, I think, May, right? So, and they signed Jerkston Profar, which was an under-the-radar signing. They got to stay healthy. They got to stay healthy, right? They dealt with a ton of injuries last year, and despite all that, they still made the playoffs. And they got knocked out pretty quickly. But I just think this is the team to beat if they are clicking on all cylinders. I got them winning the division. Now, in terms of the wild card teams, it's very tough. It's very tough. I think the Mets will make the wild card. I would put the Phillies in there as well. And then that last wild card spot is tough because you could say like maybe the Brewers make it as a wild card or the Diamondbacks, but the Padres people are down on because they could end up trading a lot of their guys because they might not be able to afford the team that they currently have. I still think the Padres are probably the second best team in that division. Now, the Diamondbacks could be very good with their pitching. I'm going to give the Padres that third wild card spot. So the Mets, the Phillies, and the Padres. The Phillies, this could be one of their last runs. Their lineup is getting older. But they still have Zach Wheeler. You still have Aaron Nola at the front of that rotation. They traded for Jesus Luzardo. Which, again, back of the rotation guy. Ranger Suarez was good for them last year. He's hurt right now, but hopefully they get him back. But yeah, I got the Phillies making it as a wild card team. And then we got the Mets. Look, the pitching does concern me, but they were able to make it work last year, and they got Juan Soto. They have Juan Soto now. I think the lineup is solid at the top. Now, they're missing Francisco Alvarez, their catcher, and that does hurt the lineup. But with Lindor and Soto and Alonso and Mark Vientos as well, I got to see Mark Vientos, homer off of Garrett Cole last year in the Subway Series game I was at. And Mark Vientos had some big hits in the postseason as well. The lineup's good. The lineup's good. Nimmo is a good player. The pitching, again, is what concerns me. But, if you get Sean Manaea back, right, if Kodai Senga, can be the pitcher that he was, prior to his injury-riddled season last year, the Mets will figure it out. And if, they got to make a move at the deadline, they could do that. So I think the Mets are going to have a good year, but I still think the Braves are the number one team. So to run through it, I got the Reds winning the Central, Dodgers winning the National League West, I got the Braves winning the East, and then I have the Phillies, the Mets, and the Padres. So now World Series prediction. Now, one of my friends sent this prediction, but I do have the Dodgers getting back to the World Series again. Now, injuries could happen. Upset could happen. But I just think if the Dodgers are close to healthy when we get to the postseason, I don't think there's really any team that's going to knock them off. I don't. I think there will be teams that come close, but I just think, you get to a 7-game series, you might push the Dodgers as best you can, but they're just better. So I got them getting back to the World Series. The American League is interesting. I don't have the Yankees getting to the World Series, but I to be honest, yeah, I was going to pick the Rangers. I was going to pick the Rangers. You know, like their lineup is really good. They got good young players in that lineup, and they got a nice blend with veterans as well. You know, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and they're pitching. You know, if Jacob deGrom can turn back into the Jacob deGrom that we know he can be, or at least a variant of it, like I said when I talked about deGrom last week, they're good. And they got a Hall of Fame manager in Bruce Bochy. So I think that might be the team to beat in the American League. But could be wrong. You know, they won 78 games last year. They need guys to stay healthy because they dealt with injuries, and also Adolis Garcia. He needs to have a bounce-back year because he was kind of disappointing. But that's kind of where I'm leaning. Rangers, Dodgers, and I think the Dodgers are going to repeat. Now, if you remember, if you've watched me doing shows here, we had the Chiefs three-peating, right? And I got that wrong. So now I'm taking the Dodgers to repeat. So maybe I will be wrong with that as well. That would be something that I would be okay with being wrong. But that's what I got. Dodgers over the Rangers. Say that goes, 6 or 7 games. So yeah, those are my predictions. Did the American League yesterday, the National League today. And we're not done with baseball just yet because it is opening day. And we are going to talk about the games for today, the pitching matchups. I will give you picks for those games when we come back from our next break. But let me know what you guys think, though, about my predictions. If you did not see the American League predictions, go check them out. They were on yesterday's show. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the National League predictions, my World Series prediction. Let me know in the comments. So yes, when we come back, we will take a look at the matchups for today. I think some of the Yankees lineup was released. I saw that. We'll see if some of the other lineups were released as well. We'll take a look through those. We'll also take a look at the pitching matchups, like I said, and I will give you my predictions for the games today. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we are now going to take a look at the games today in Major League Baseball, the pitching matchups, who I think will win each game, give you a rough prediction. But yes, happy opening day to those that celebrate. So everybody's playing today. What I don't like is that a lot of these teams, they play today, and then some of them just don't play tomorrow. And then they're back on Saturday. It just makes no sense. Why is it set up that way? And one of those teams is the Yankees. It always annoys me that they do this. But yeah, so Yankees actually get us started 3:05 p.m. Eastern Time. We got Freddie Peralta against Carlos Rodon, who will be the opening day starter for the Yankees with no Garrett Cole. Makes me sad. But, yeah, last year, Freddie Peralta in 32 starts, 11-9 with a 3.68 ERA. Was not great in spring training. He had an ERA over 8. But, look, if it happens in spring training, it's one thing. But if you start to see that happening in the regular season, well, that's a problem. And then Carlos Rodon, I mean, he had an ERA over 5.4. And 10 innings in spring training. Last year, 16-9 with a 3.96 ERA. And he was solid in the postseason. But during the regular season, there was that rough stretch in like July where he couldn't get anybody out. He was giving up, 8 runs like every start, 6 to 8 runs like every start. But he was able to figure it out, and like I said, he pitched well in the postseason. And the Yankees are going to need him to step up this year, especially with the injury to Garrett Cole. Now, like I said, the Yankees, I did see their lineup was announced. There is no lineup announcement for the Brewers yet. So this is the Yankees lineup for today. You got Austin Wells leading off, who is the first catcher in Yankees history to ever lead off. Then you got Aaron Judge batting second. Cody Bellinger fourth, Cody Bellinger third, Paul Goldschmidt fourth, Jazz Chisholm fifth, Jason Dominguez sixth, Anthony Volpe seventh, Ben Rice eighth, Oswaldo Cabrera ninth, and Oswaldo Cabrera is playing third base. But yeah, Judge is in right, Bellinger in center, Goldschmidt at first, Jazz at second, Dominguez in left, Volpe at short, Ben Rice is DH, and Oswaldo is at third. And we'll see what happens. I think this game could go either way, honestly. But you know what? I'm going to say the Yankees win. Get off on the right track here. Get a win. I think it really is going to come down to how Rodon pitches. Because if he gives up like a 5 spot in the first inning, I think the Brewers are going to win that. But could be close. Could be a close game. I'm excited. I'm excited to get it going. So then we got the Orioles and the Blue Jays who start around the same time. You got Zach Eflin and Jose Barrios. This game is in Toronto. The Blue Jays do have their lineup. So you got Bo Bichette leading off, playing short. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at first. Anthony Santander batting third. Big free agent acquisition. Andres Jimenez, who they got in a trade from the Guardians, he's batting fourth. Alejandro Kirk will be catching. George Springer all the way down to the number 6 spot. He'll be in center field. And then you have Will Wagner DHing, batting 7th. Ernie Clement is playing 3rd, batting 8th. And then you got Alan Rodin in the starting lineup. And he'll be batting 9th and in right field. Blue Jays, let's see what kind of season they have. The lineup is not bad, but not great. Santander, I think was a good acquisition, and I think he's going to have a good year for them. They just paid Alejandro Kirk, but it's amazing George Springer. George Springer now is 35 years old, and he was not great in the spring. And he was not great last year. And now he's all the way down to 6. He was leading off. He was their leadoff hitter, and now he's not. So, and we'll see what kind of year Vladdy has. This is his contract year. And, Bo Bichette's a guy that actually did well in the spring, but was not good last year. So maybe he bounces back. And they got some young players towards the bottom of the lineup. We'll see what happens. I did have, like I said, I picked the Orioles to win the division, which I maybe was a little too out there, but we'll see. We'll see. But you know what? I like the Orioles to get the win here. You got Garrett Crochet making his debut against the Texas Rangers. A good pitching matchup between him and Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi last year, 12-8 with a 3.8 ERA. Let's say the Red Sox get the win here with Crochet. Let's see. Did anybody release? Oh, wait. Do they have? Actually, no. Both of them did not release the lineups yet. But that's because they're later in the day. But then we got the Phillies and the Nationals. You got Zach Wheeler against Mackenzie Gore. I like the Phillies to win there. Then you got Tanner Bybee, who just got paid this offseason. Oh, actually, both pitchers got paid this offseason. You got Tanner Bybee and Cole Reagans, who was not great in spring training. He had an ERA over 8. Say maybe the Royals get the win there. Then you got Clay Holmes against Framber Valdez. Mets will be in Houston. Juan Soto makes his debut today. We'll be paying close attention to that. It's interesting how back-to-back years Juan Soto will have made his debut with 2 New York teams, back-to-back years, and his debut will be in Houston. Now, last year the Yankees swept the Astros in Houston, and everybody was saying, wow, the vibes around this team feel a lot different because they started off 4-0. And, yeah, they ended up going to the World Series. So, let's see what happens with the Mets. Let's see what he does in Houston this time around. Does he throw, a guy out at home plate? Does he homer in this series? I'm sure he does. The other thing I'm curious to see is how is Clay Holmes going to do? Because he used to be, or actually he started out as a starting pitcher, but then he was a reliever. And now the Mets have him as an opening day starter. But he did very well in the spring. In 19 innings, 19 and a third innings, he had a .93 ERA. 23 strikeouts, and a whip under 1. So maybe he is going to be a good starter. And the Mets do very well, with their pitching, and changing guys up and making it work. So let's see what happens. Framber Valdez, he was decent in the spring. I'm curious to see what the Astros do, because they lost Bregman, they lost... Bregman will be making his debut with the Red Sox today. They lost Bregman. They traded Kyle Tucker. Jose Altuve is now playing in the outfield. But when it comes to this game, and this game is a toss-up for me. I'll say the Mets get the win. And so both New York teams go home happy tonight. Giants and the Reds have the Reds winning the division. Hunter Green will be getting the start. Pitched well last season. Logan Webb. Good pitching matchup. I'll say the Reds get on the right track with the win. Braves and the Padres. This is a good pitching matchup and a good series to start off the year. Chris Sale against Michael King. I'm going to say the Braves get the win. I do like the pitching matchup. Both teams I have making the playoffs. So we'll see. And then you got two teams that aren't going to be very good, the Angels and the White Sox. You got Yusei Kikuchi for the Angels, and then Sean Burke for the White Sox. Say the Angels get a win. You know what? Mike Trout is going to hit a home run today. Let's hope Mike Trout gets off to a good start. And he plays a whole year. Then you got Paul Skeens against Sandy Alcantara, making his way back from Tommy John surgery. I'm going to say the Pirates get the win. Tonight or today. They play later today. But yeah, Paul Skeens, definitely a guy that many people are picking to win the Cy Young. Actually, the Marlins do have their starting lineup out. And I got to be honest, not a lot of household names in this lineup. Not a lot of household names. That is interesting. Remember when they used to have Yelich and Stanton and D. Gordon and Real Muto? They had all these guys. Ozuna. If I saw one of these guys walking on the street, I would not know who they are. And no offense to them. Now, I know Sandy Alcantara, but wow. That's their starting lineup for today. Okay. Well, I got the Pirates winning with Skeens. Then we got Pablo Lopez against Sonny Gray. Twins, they were leading the Central last year, and then they collapsed at the end. I like the Twins to win. Then you got a good pitching matchup: Tigers and the Dodgers. Blake Snell and Tariq Skubal, two southpaws going at it. I think the Dodgers win a close game. They win a close game. And then you got Zach Gallen and Justin Steele, the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. I like the, you know what? I say the Diamondbacks get the win. And then Luis Severino for the Athletics tonight against Logan Gilbert. Say the Mariners get the win there. That game's in Seattle. But those are the pitching matchups, and those are the teams that I have winning those matchups. But let me know what you guys think. What game are you most excited to watch today? Really excited. Baseball is back. So we are going to take our final break now. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Baltimore Ravens. We will go over their season, what they've done in the offseason, and yeah, so all of that'll take us right to the end of the show. So, for one final time today, make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to do a season overview on the Baltimore Ravens. We'll take a look back at their year and what they've done in the offseason so far. So, the Ravens, a team that, many people had high expectations for going into the year. And did they live up to their expectations? Well, look, Lamar Jackson, first team All-Pro. They signed Derrick Henry, and he had a big year. Ravens won 12 games. However, they did get knocked out in the divisional round. And another disappointing end to their season. Now, they got things started off with a very entertaining first game of the year, and that came against the Kansas City Chiefs on opening night. The Ravens, they were this close to scoring a touchdown at the end, and then they were going to go for two to try to go for the win. Isaiah Likely, his foot was just out of bounds, and yeah, they ended up losing the game and they actually started off 0-2 on the year, because then I don't know how this happened, but they lost to the Raiders at home in week 2. And then that's when I thought, oh, maybe, my Raiders prediction wasn't so bad. They beat the Ravens on the road. But then the Ravens then proceeded to win their next 5 games. However, they did almost blow a lead against the Cowboys. They were up big, and then the Cowboys made things interesting towards the end. They outscored the Ravens 19-0 in the fourth quarter. But Derrick Henry had his first big game as a Raven. 25 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. But yeah, the Ravens got their first win of the season, and then they beat up on the Bills. Derrick Henry had almost 200 yards rushing in the game. Lamar Jackson, 2 touchdown passes in that contest. So that got them back to 500. Then they had that shootout with the Bengals. They were down 10. Lamar Jackson had that signature play where he stiff-armed, I think it was Sam Hubbard, and then he threw a touchdown to Isaiah Likely, and they were able to come back down 10. Lamar had 4 touchdowns in the game. The Ravens ran the ball for almost 200 yards. They ran the ball for 175. They got the win, and they won 41-38 there. Then they beat the Commanders 30-23. They put up 40 against the Bucks, 41-31. So things were looking good. They were 5-2 at that point. And then I got the pleasure of watching them play against the Browns. Very entertaining game. And the Browns upset them in the game, 29-24. Lamar had a pretty good game. Zay Flowers was the leading receiver. The Ravens dropped a couple of interceptions in that game that probably would have changed the outcome. But, yeah, and what was concerning about the Ravens, the offensive line was a little shaky, and also their secondary was not very good. Their pass defense was struggling. But then they beat up on the Broncos. They won 41-10. They won on that Thursday night against the Bengals. They came back. They were down by a couple of scores. They came back and won that. But then they lose to the Steelers, 18-16. Chris Boswell kicked 6 field goals. And at that point, you thought, the Steelers going to win the division? But the Ravens, they bounced back. They got the win against the Chargers. Then the Eagles came in, and, they shut down that offense. The Ravens still ran the ball for a decent number, 166. But yeah, they held Derrick Henry to 82 yards on the ground. And the Ravens were up, 9-0. But the Eagles came back, and they ended up winning that game 24-19 behind good defense and also Saquon Barkley as well. And then they went into the bye. So they go into the bye at 8-5. But then they proceeded to win their next 5 games. They beat up on the Giants. They beat up on the Steelers. They beat up on the Texans on Christmas. They went 31-2. The only points the Texans got was from a safety. They beat up on the Browns in the regular season finale, 35-10. Then they beat the Steelers 28-14. And then we got to the divisional round, and they lose 27-25. And that was because of turnovers. Turnovers, missed opportunities. Mark Andrews drops that 2-point conversion. Lamar Jackson played very well in the second half. And had those turnovers not happened in the first half, you make the argument the Ravens probably win that game. But you had the turnover. Well, you also had the Mark Andrews fumble in the second half as well. So, some missed opportunities there. And they went home, and, now it's like another year of Lamar Jackson falling short in the playoffs. And looking at Lamar on the season, played very well, 4,100 yards passing, 41 touchdowns, 4 picks, passer rating of 119.6. Derrick Henry, almost 2,000 yards rushing, 1,921 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns, and he also had 2 receiving touchdowns, so 18 touchdowns in total. Lamar Jackson had 915 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. Zay Flowers had over 1,000 yards. He had 4 touchdowns. Rashad Bateman got paid in the offseason. He had 9 touchdowns. Mark Andrews had 11 receiving touchdowns. Isaiah Likely had 6. A lot of touchdowns to many different guys. Justin Tucker has kind of had a rough offseason. Also had a rough year. 22 of 30 on field goals, and that's a 73%. Extra points, he was 60 of 62. For the defense, Roquan Smith was a tackling machine. He had 154 total tackles, 1.5 sacks. Kyle Van Noy had 12.5 sacks. Oweh had 10 sacks on the season. Matabuke had 6.5. A lot of guys with sacks on the Ravens. But, and then Marlon Humphrey led the team with 6 interceptions. But, yeah, the pass defense did struggle. It did get better towards the end of the year. But looking at the rankings, for the Ravens offense, they were first in total yards per game, first in rushing yards per game, and they were 7th in passing yards per game. One of the top offenses in the league. And then for their defense, they ranked 9 in total yards allowed per game. They were first in rushing yards allowed per game. But, against the pass, their pass defense was ranked 31st. So that really shows you the comparison. They were really good against the run, not very good against the pass. But yeah, they had the 2nd most sacks in the league. They had the 17th most interceptions in the league. Defense allowed 21.2 points per game, which is ranking 9th in the league. They were the best run, like I said, they were the best run defense. They allowed first in yards allowed per rush with 3.6. So yeah, pass defense is what they have to what they had to improve on. And I definitely would suspect they had to that in the draft. Now, what they did in free agency, they did sign a Woozier corner to a 1-year deal. They re-signed Tylan Wallace. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. They added him to the receiving core. He's in decline, but, I think he helps that receiver room. They added Jack Hummel, linebacker. They re-signed Patrick Ricard. They re-signed Ronnie Stanley, left tackle. You didn't want to lose him. Ben Cleveland they re-signed. They signed Cooper Rush to be a backup quarterback. I thought that was a good signing. But yeah, I think they definitely need to add to the offensive line. They need to add, because they had a relatively young, inexperienced offensive line in some positions, so they need to address that. Probably, again, secondary they're going to address, but I mean, everywhere else, it's not a lot of glaring holes on this team, and they're going to be back again next year. They're going to be a very good team. They picked 27th in the first round, so yeah, I suspect maybe you take, a corner. They got the 59th pick in the second round. So they got 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, 2 4s, a 5th round pick, 4 6th round picks, and then a 7th. So they could do a lot of things with that. But yeah, corner, offensive line, maybe a receiver, maybe a running back late. Because, Derrick Henry's not going to be around for the long term. At some point he's going to retire. So, they do have Keaton Mitchell on the team. They do have Justice Hill, but I don't know. Well, maybe I'm wrong in saying that. But, that could be a position maybe they address very late in the draft. But I do think the top priorities for them is offensive line and secondary. But yeah, it was another disappointing end to their season, and we'll see what happens next year. But it was a great year for Lamar Jackson. It was a great year for Derrick Henry. So we'll see how it goes. We will see how the draft goes for them. But not a ton of splash moves in free agency. But let me know what you guys think though about the Ravens season. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So that is pretty much it for the show today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channels. And wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to us as well. Happy opening day. Happy Sweet 16. Got a lot of stuff coming up. And then, we got the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs around the corner. So, it's an exciting time to be a sports fan. We finally got out of that lull period. And then sure enough, we got the draft coming up in a month. So there's big things that are on the way now. There are things coming up later on in the future. So it's like I said, it's an exciting time to be a sports fan. But appreciate you guys tuning in. And let's see what happens today. Going to be locked into baseball. Like I said, Sweet 16 being on. So there's going to be a lot to talk about tomorrow. We'll recap the Sweet 16 games tomorrow. We'll talk about the games that are on tomorrow night. I'll recap some of the best games, around baseball. We'll get into, more season overviews. I'm still deciding on which division. I guess we'll go with the AFC South. So we'll start that off talking about the Jaguars. So I do have, and then we got to figure out the rest of the itinerary for tomorrow. But that's, a little sneak peek for tomorrow's show. Make sure to tune in, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.